This video is going to show you how you can bring the letters, those photos that represent the letters, into your background. So just to kind of review some orientation to Photoshop, the only panel that we're going to need on the side here is the layers. Some of you guys might have considered clearing out some of these areas just to make room, but the only one we're going to need is layers. If you have a lot of stuff going on, so let me go to my workspace here. If you have a lot of these areas open and you don't have any need for them, you can close out any of these tabs and any of these panels. Every single one of them has these three lines in the top right hand side of the window, and you can close tab group. So honestly, you can do this to every single panel until they're all gone. And to gather them again, you can go up to Window, and they're all listed for you here. The only thing that we need are the layers. So the idea is we're going to be taking each one of these pictures and we're going to be bringing it to the background. We're going to be using a tool called the Move tool. The shortcut is the letter V. So one of the things that you might not have realized with Photoshop is that you can bring any of your images out onto your desktop, and it will still be active in Photoshop, but it just allows you to kind of use the room a little bit, the space a little bit differently. So if you prefer to work with some of these images outside and you can bring them back in, it just allows you to kind of spread your space out quite a bit. If you want to put them back into the application, you take the top bar, drag it until you have it highlighted in blue and let go, and then it's put back into place. So what I tend to do is I put my background here, and I'm going to bring all of my images one by one into this picture here. To do that, I'm going to be using the Move tool. The shortcut's the letter V, and should be pretty simple. I'm just going to go inside of this image and drag without letting go right here, and then I let go. So it should allow me to move this around. So now I'm going to go to my other image. They do not have to be in order. Another option, if you wanted to, some students like to bring their image here, and again, same idea. Using the Move tool, you drag it into here. It'll work the same way. So it might feel a little weird at the beginning, but you get used to it like any sort of tool that you're using. So you can start to put them into place. So you're going to do this for every single letter. So let's see what I'm missing here. I need an E and I need an N. So I have them marked. I'll get my E. So once again, in order to bring it over, I got to be able to see both of them. And the N. This way. So you can see I'm kind of jumping around doing it two different ways. So now that I have them all in place, I don't need these images anymore, so I can just X them out, meaning the letters, the images of the letters. I use them on here already. So now this is in one space. You notice that they are now in different layers. Each photo is on its own layer. If I want them to disappear, I don't want them visible, I can click on the eyes, and then I can bring them back by clicking on the eyes again. When we do the background in another video or two, we're going to be making these letters invisible so we can just see the background. So now to line them up, you want to make sure that they're 1/2 of an inch in between each other, as well as 1/2 of an inch on either side. So if you start moving these around, you might notice that you have these pink lines that show up. This is kind of helping you along, and I find that it's a little bit clumsy, like it's saying 0.757 inches. I really need it to be 0.5, and it gets a little jumpy it's kind of difficult. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a grid on this image, and the grid is just a temporary thing. It can go away, but I'm going to use it as a tool right now. I'm going to go to View, and then I go to Show, and there's my grid right there. The shortcut is hitting the Command button and the apostrophe, which is right by your return button on your keyboard. So to make this disappear, you can go back to View, Show, and Grid, or you can hit Command and the apostrophe. So you can see what I'm doing is I'm pushing it over and over again. So you see it disappears and then it reappears. So I want this to be in place. I'm also going to use the Zoom tool, and I'm going to zoom in so I could really see the grid. It's just like graph paper. You have this, the 4 squares by 4 squares, that's 1 inch. And the little squares are 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to slide this up so I have 2 spaces on the top, 2 spaces on the left, 2 spaces on the right. If I don't have those 2 spaces on either side, it might mean that I might need to recrop this picture. And you can verify that this is 5 inches because you can see it says a half, 1, 2, 3, 4, plus another half. So this just shows you that it is lined up and they're the same amount. They are 4 by 5. And so I'm just moving these around. You notice that to move to a different part of the picture, I'm using this scroll bar over here. If you don't want to use the scroll bar, there's a shortcut. If you hold down the space bar, you get this hand. And the hand tool is one of your options over here. The shortcut's the letter H. But what this does is I'm holding down the space bar and it just temporarily gives me the hand tool. And then once I get to where I want to be, I let go and it goes back to the tool that I was originally using. So it's a nice thing to jump back and forth with. So you can see that once I had the 1/2 of an inch in between each of the spaces, each of the words, well, in between each of the letters, that I'm left over with another 1/2 inch. So again, that verifies that these letters were the correct size. I'm going to hit Command 0, and what that does is it fits it on the page, and I'm going to get rid of my grid by hitting Command quotes. So you can see that this is the way it's laid out. This is the way it's going to look. So we're going to embellish this by doing some stuff to the background, and then we're going to put some layer styles on these letters.